In July 2010, a violent incident shook the quiet Dublin suburb of Fairview. At the Players' Lounge, a pub owned by John Stokes, father of soccer player Anthony Stokes, an unexpected attack occurred just after midnight on July 26th. A masked gunman, armed with 2 weapons, opened fire outside the pub. The doorman, Wayne Barrett, was shot in the head, while 2 bystanders, Austin Peel and Brian Masterson, were hit in the chest and back respectively. The assailant fled in a red Volkswagen Golf. Miraculously, all 3 victims survived the attack. The community was left stunned, wondering about the motive behind this seemingly random act of violence at a neighborhood pub. The getaway car was later found burned in Dublin's south inner city. As the investigation unfolded, Fairview residents struggled to come to terms with the intrusion of gangland violence into their area. The case remained unsolved for years until an unexpected lead emerged. Alan Wilson, a known hitman linked to the Kinahan cartel, became a person of interest during a separate investigation. His involvement in the Fairview shooting would soon come to light in an unexpected way. In 2017, during an investigation into the Kinahan organization, authorities intercepted a conversation in Wilson's car. Wilson was recorded boasting about his role in the Players' Lounge shooting, claiming to be the gunman. However, when confronted, he retracted his statement, calling it mere bragging. Despite Wilson's denials, suspicions persisted. In 2021, he stood trial for the attempted murders. Faced with mounting evidence, Wilson pleaded guilty to conspiracy to carry out the murders, admitting to providing guns and getaway vehicles for the attack. Wilson received a 10-year prison sentence. While this brought some closure, the full truth behind the Fairview shooting remained unclear. The incident left lasting scars on the community. The investigation revealed complex family ties and criminal connections. Alan Wilson's cousin, John Wilson, also came under scrutiny and was briefly held by police in August 2011, a year after the shooting. The Wilson family had long been a fixture in Ireland's criminal landscape. John, along with his brothers Keith and Eric, had carved out a notorious reputation for themselves. Eric would later gain infamy as one of Ireland's most prolific gangland killers, eventually serving a life sentence in Spain for murder. Keith, too, would find himself behind bars for taking a life. John Wilson's brush with the law in connection to the Fairview shooting seemed to be a turning point. Although a file had been prepared and charges appeared imminent, John was ultimately released without formal accusation. However, this brush with the authorities was far from John's first encounter with the criminal justice system. At the age of 24, John had already dipped his toes into the murky waters of organized crime. He served as the getaway driver in the 2001 murder of Simon Doyle, a killing linked to Dublin's drug trade. This early involvement in serious criminal activity painted a target on John's back. He narrowly escaped death when he was hit at least twice in a shotgun attack in the driveway of his parents' home. In the years that followed, John Wilson aligned himself with Seán Hunt, a figure described as a criminal godfather. Hunt, a former IRA chief, had amassed considerable wealth through various illegal enterprises, including cigarette smuggling. However, Hunt's criminal empire soon found itself in conflict with another dangerous faction, the Real IRA, led by Alan Ryan. The clash between Hunt and Ryan centered around protection money. Ryan had begun extorting funds from Hunt's operations, a move that threatened the delicate balance of power in Dublin's criminal underworld. In response, Hunt tasked John Wilson with eliminating Alan Ryan. This assignment led John to the Players' Lounge in North Dublin, setting the stage for the tragic events that would unfold. However, John's mission went horribly awry. Instead of taking out his intended target, he nearly claimed the lives of 3 innocent bystanders. This blunder infuriated Seán Hunt, leading to John's estrangement from the criminal group he had once called home. With his ties to Hunt severed and his younger brothers Eric and Keith both imprisoned for murder, John Wilson found himself in an increasingly precarious position. No longer under Hunt's protection, he became a vulnerable target in a world where enemies lurked around every corner. Despite the constant threat to his life, John Wilson demonstrated a remarkable ability to cheat death. He survived 3 separate attempts on his life, each one a stark reminder of the dangerous world he inhabited. In April 2011, he was shot in the knee during a late-night attack in his native Blanchardstown. Months earlier, in September 2010, he narrowly escaped when 2 armed gunmen arrived at his house, reportedly planning to shoot him as he took his children to school. When John's wife answered the door, the would-be assassins panicked and fled. Perhaps the most chilling incident occurred in March 2009, when John discovered a pipe bomb under his car parked outside his Blanchardstown home. The Army bomb disposal team was called in to defuse the viable device, averting a potential tragedy. These repeated attempts on his life made it abundantly clear to John that he was living on borrowed time. Meanwhile, the feud between Seán Hunt and Alan Ryan's Real IRA faction continued to escalate. The situation reached a boiling point with the murder of Colin "Collie" Owens, who was gunned down while working at an animal feed store in Finglas, North Dublin. In a swift act of retaliation, Hunt ordered the murder of the alleged shooter, Daniel Gaynor. Interestingly, Hunt turned to Keith Wilson, John's younger brother, to carry out this hit. The choice of Keith over John spoke volumes about the erosion of trust between Hunt and the elder Wilson brother. Keith fled to Spain after the killing, but was eventually extradited to Ireland and convicted of Gaynor's murder. In the aftermath of these tit-for-tat killings, Hunt and the Real IRA reportedly reached an uneasy truce, rumored to involve a substantial monetary settlement. However, for John Wilson, the damage had been done. With both his younger brothers behind bars and his former protector Hunt no longer in his corner, John found himself utterly alone in a world that seemed intent on claiming his life. The final chapter of John Wilson's tumultuous life unfolded on a September afternoon in 2012. As he pulled up outside his home on Cloverhill Road in Cherry Orchard, West Dublin, John had just collected his young daughter from school. A man in the passenger seat accompanied them, and John intended to drop his daughter at a neighbor's house for the afternoon. As John stepped out of the car and approached his front door, a vehicle drew up behind him. From it emerged a hooded figure, face obscured by a scarf. The gunman followed John into the hallway through the open door. In a matter of seconds, 6 shots rang out, shattering the quiet of the suburban street. John was struck twice from behind, once in the arm and once in the chest. The chest wound was particularly severe, leaving a 6-centimeter diameter hole and causing significant internal damage. As John lay on the ground, struggling for breath, his young daughter witnessed the horrifying scene, later recounting the sound of bang, bang, bang and the sight of her father rolling around. Despite the quick arrival of emergency services and prolonged resuscitation efforts, John Wilson succumbed to his injuries. The 35-year-old father of 2 had finally run out of luck, his violent past catching up with him in the most brutal fashion. The investigation into John Wilson's murder moved swiftly. The getaway car, a brown Volkswagen Passat estate stolen 2 days earlier in Selbridge, County Kildare, was found burned out with the murder weapon, a Ruger gun, inside. In a bizarre twist, the shooter was traced to a JD Sports store, where he had purchased new clothes and discarded his old ones in a skip. Forensic examination of the discarded items revealed firearms residue, petrol traces, and a phone. Within hours of the shooting, police apprehended a suspect, 36-year-old Keith O'Neill. Despite pleading not guilty to the gang-related murder, O'Neill was convicted by a jury and sentenced to life in prison in 2015. John Wilson's murder marked the 3rd Gangland assassination in just 5 days, and the 13th overall in 2012, highlighting the volatile nature of Dublin's criminal underworld. At the time of his death, Wilson had accumulated a lengthy list of enemies among various criminal factions in Dublin, including the Real IRA group formerly led by Alan Ryan, who had been killed just a month prior. Speculation arose regarding a possible connection between John's murder and his suspected involvement in the Players' Lounge shooting 2 years earlier. However, senior officers also pointed to a more recent dispute between Wilson and West Dublin drug traffickers as a potential motive for his killing. The saga of the Wilson family and their involvement in the Players' Lounge shooting serves as a stark reminder of the cyclical nature of violence in the criminal world. From Alan Wilson's boastful claims and subsequent imprisonment to John Wilson's narrow escapes and ultimate demise, the story weaves a complex tapestry of loyalty, betrayal, and retribution. That's it for today's video. Please leave a like and subscribe and post in the comments section and tell me what videos you would like to see next. Thank you, and I will see you next time.